Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to the Survival Show, a special one today. We're going to be talking about next gen survival, what to expect from the biggest games going on current console generation, and how much they're improving or not improving for the next gen so far. Going over the Halloween content some of these games are also adding and supplying, and also taking a look at some brand new games, some stealth launches on the PlayStation 4 for the Wild 8, and a few other bits and bobs you need to know. So let's go, it's all here, it's the Survival Show. So yesterday, Wildcard put out a brand new video showcasing the differences between the base Xbox and the Xbox Series X. It looks fantastic, there's more detail you can clearly see, more render distance, volumetric lighting and all that good shizzle, 4K, great stuff. But I remember when they said they would have 60 FPS running on the Xbox One X and there would be huge improvements for that. There were improvements, but they were minor at best. It really shows something that when Digital Foundry, one of the biggest channels, people out there in the industry who examine how performance works on games and consoles, they have even said that Ark is one of the most unoptimized games they've ever played on a PS4 or an Xbox One. Now this must have actually hurt Wildcard because they went and actually atted them on Twitter to tell them that this is what's going to be planned and this update has just gone live. Digital Foundry's kind of analysis went a few days before this. So yeah, it looks great. You take a look at all these features and you think amazing. But like I said, I do remember when they announced a bunch of stuff for the Xbox One X and it just wasn't there. We know we're going to get improvements with next gen and that's what we're going to talk about today. But it still requires a bit of work from developers. You will get better frame rates. You are going to get 4K in a lot of times upscaled, but there are so many more improvements some of these developers could do, but it involves them actually doing some work themselves, and some of them are doing it better than others. Now by looks of things, and I left quite a salty comment on the video yesterday, it does look like Wildcard are trying, like it really got a few features here that I really like no tether anymore on single player or co-op I should say, or split screen. You'll be able to run around to the whole rest of the map with your friends, your family, and you won't have to worry about being teleported anymore. They had that feature though, running on an Xbox OG, but it was eaten into the memory and they took it away. So it feels a little bit like, well, yeah, it's great, but you did kind of have this feature running, so it's not that much of a big deal. You just simply are taking advantage of the fact there's more RAM and more memory. And that's the most important thing with these survival games. With all the base building going on, with it's all the creatures, or whether it's all the thralls in Conan, or if it's all the items in dayz, you need an incredible amount of RAM. That's why they always run better on PC. Not because of the graphics necessarily, it's because of the RAM usage. And so with the next gen having more RAM and more faster loading, the idea is that it will render bases in quicker. You'll be able to see larger bases much more and it won't have horrible tessellation going around all over the place. And lag is the major one. Not only is lag caused by your internet connection, it is caused by how much you're rendering at any one time, how many creatures are popping in, how many base items. So next gen is going to improve all of that for all survival games, and it will probably do that a little bit without really any massive updates from developers themselves, but for sure some developers could do a bit more in making sure their games run even better or have got some fantastic improvements. So if this all works, whatever Wildcard have said with their little list, and it's all true, then I'll be down for it and I'll be celebrating it. But there's still so many missteps that Wildcard have done that kind of still piss me off. One of which is Nintendo Switch. It's just coming up to its second birthday of being around, and you know what? They've never had an update. Not a single update for any content, any bug fixes, nothing. How can you be updating and crying about how good you are in going next gen, but you can't even update the Nintendo Switch? Don't get me wrong, that system maybe shouldn't have never even run Ark, but that's the point. They used it as a bit of a cash cow, a cash grab. They put it out there and didn't show any love to it, and they promised they would. They said in live streams that they would support it with content to come. They would try and add the DLC, add free DLC as well, and they've got nothing. If you go and load up Ark on the Switch right now, you'll play just the island and that is it. There's no Primitive Plus, there's no Center Map, there's no Ragnarok, no Valguero, no Scorched Earth, no Aberration, no Extinction, no Genesis, nothing. It's got the same gameplay from 2.5 years ago. Wildcard actually fired and got rid of the port team that were working on it, and the port team that were working on it wanted to actually improve the game even more, but Wildcard said no. The port team were even thinking of ways to crowdfund so they could do it, because they obviously can't work for free, and Wildcard pretty much got rid of them. And that's it. They've never touched it. They've never addressed the fact that they've not supported Nintendo Switch one single bit. And then when you add that with the recent problems with the Halloween update on Xbox, where players are now jumping onto servers, there's no creatures, the spawns are mucked up, dinosaurs are invisible, all the same old problems that Ark has always had on consoles, as well as a few on PC, it's all still there, and it just shows that Wildcard haven't learned anything. In 5 years of running their game, probably one of the worst ran games I've ever played, they just don't actually learn from experience. The latest update was 3 or 4 days late on Xbox, it was a day later even more on Windows 10, and it was broken, no one could see their servers. All in all, it's another cluster truck, and it happens far too much with Wildcard and Ark. No other game has as many cock-ups as they do. Not Conan, not dayz. Ark have the most amount of cock-ups, and after 5 years you would think they'd be able to plan events a little bit better. And so that's kind of my reasoning why I love Ark, but I hate it as well, because the development team are great, but the people in charge, they're absolute dickheads. They make decisions based on purely just being wow and hype, and don't necessarily go around actually fixing the core problems or adjusting and changing themselves to do better for their player bases. As long as they're creating the hype to lure you in like clickbait YouTubers, they don't care that your experience while playing the game is considerably worse. They've put an optimization update out recently, and I hope it does go a long way to making things better, and I hope this really does work out. But I'll see it when I believe it, and I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually get a chance to show you guys what it runs like on an Xbox Series X or an S. Anywho, they're not the only ones. Don't get me wrong, it must be really challenging making your game being able to possibly run on future generations, almost future-proofing it for other consoles. And I still think there's definitely a lot of lessons to be learned, and they're not the only one. Conan Exiles and Funcom have recently announced, or a little while ago, that they wouldn't actually be making any substantial big update for current consoles. They're not going to do like a specific one like Ark have done, or No Man's Sky, which we're going to take a look at in a minute. They're pretty much just going to have it backward running compatible, and they're not going to be doing any additional work. Now, Funcom have had problems all year. Their port teams have been affected mostly by the COVID situation, hence why consoles aren't getting the Isla Sipta content and why it's been so slow to get even basic fixes much needed, particularly on the Xbox. So don't expect any huge changes that way. They didn't rule it out completely, but they said it's not a focus. So you will see improved frame rates. You will see maybe 4K upscaling, but what you won't see is the list of stuff you saw on the Ark dev, or any massive improvements like increasing player size on host sit players, etc. Not unless they actually go and do something about it and add a proper update to the game. I'm sure they might in a year's time, but then again, maybe not, because they'll be looking at what's happening with June, and they'll probably be taking even more resources away from Conan development. I expect a lot from these games. Do you know why? Because they sell DLC. Year in, year out, we're buying more DLC. Whether it's the season passes from Ark, whether or not it's the Scepter Island that's going to come, or whether it's been cosmetic DLC from Conan. Both of these companies have asked you to spend a lot of money on content to support them more. So I think it's okay to ask them to support us properly with updates that don't break the game, and we do get them regular. I'm going to cover the latest update that's gone live on PC, and again, just to FYI though, the content that's just gone live today from the test live, basically recustomization for your character, changing the way thralls work, and loads of brand new crafting benches. Well, don't expect to see that on a console for at least a month, maybe even longer. One of the game developers that understand the importance of you guys getting more improvements is No Man's Sky. And I would now rate No Man's Sky as one of the best survival games on console. If you were to say me, do my top 30 survival games, which is like one of my most popular videos at the moment, it's like nearly 500k views, I would seriously be putting this maybe in the top 3 and maybe replacing Ark or Conan, just because of the amount of content they've put out over the last 2 years, the amount of updates they put, and the general care that they actually have for their game compared to some of the other companies. But yeah, their plans for No Man's Sky for PS5 are also just as big and comprehensive as Ark. Obviously, taking advantage of the haptic controls, you're going to feed it a lot more in your boltcaster, and also building parts slotting into place. It sounds pretty cool. It's going to be full of worlds, more details, so you're going to see more of the plants and the trees and every single rock. But the biggest one for me is 32 player multiplayer. For the first time on console, up to 32 players can join forces to build, survive, fight and explore the galaxy together. This makes you wonder why Ark can't aim for something like this. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I played local co-op, but you used to be able to have up to 8 players play on Ark Survival Evolved, but now it's only maybe like 5 or 6. So it'd be great if they could do something like that, where you could have a non-dedicated session and have up to like 10 or 15 players, which is essentially what this is. Obviously, the 4K at 60 FPS is pretty much a standard now for some of these games. Obviously, lots more visuals and looks and stuff. And the biggest one is the base building, which is definitely going to be an improvement because of that memory for every survival game. You are going to be able to see more of your base. It's not going to clip or lag out as much just because you've got some huge complex. Well, not as much anyway. You'll be loading into instances a lot quicker, and you will still be able to play with everyone on the PS4 and Xbox One. Crossplay is all still there too. And in terms of progress, a big point for the PlayStation is that some games haven't carried their progress over. You will be able to take all your progress from PS4 to the PS5. You'll also be able to play your PSVR on PlayStation 5, and it's looking like they're going to be adding more in the future as well. So this is good stuff from, I would say, Ark and No Man's Sky. And like I said, as long as they can actually back it up, I think this is great news for survival games. And if you are an Xbox fan, don't worry, a lot of the improvements are going to be there on the Xbox version too. Just this news broke on the PlayStation 4 or 5 early. Of course, remember as well, No Man's Sky is available on the Games Pass too. So there you go, my take on next gen so far, and again I'm going to show you guys what they all run like on the next gen. But anyway, let's talk about Halloween events, and the company that's doing it pretty well again, No Man's Sky, have got their Halloween event. They're making the freighters more dangerous, the creatures are going to be a lot more, and there's going to be more temperature effects going on in them, so it's just all in all a much more challenging experience. They've got loads of new themed items for Halloween as well, and there's various other little bonuses here and there. I'm not going to go into too much detail, it's live already, so you go and check it out right now, and this is definitely a company that's doing it right. So I told you that The Long Dark has got a big chunky new update for Halloween, and it's a scary one. You're going to be running away from a mysterious entity that will pretty much kill you if you don't run away quick enough. You won't actually be able to see it. It just appears and that's it, you're brown bread, and it pretty much gives you limited time in every instance of the world. You maybe only have maybe 30 minutes or so to really get to grips and get the survival stuff you need. That is also live right now. On dayz, you're going to be able to get yourself pumpkin plant spawns in farm areas. There's going to be a lot more light sources spawning in the world. Infected are going to have a random chance to spawn with pumpkin helmets. Players will spawn with additional items, i.e. a road flare. Whoopee. It's always sunset, so fog is going to be increased as well. There's dark night for everyone. I don't understand how it's always sunset, but then it's dark night for everyone. I guess that's just the two modes. It's either sunset or it's dark. Cows, deers, pigs, road deers and boars don't spawn, and there's going to be a lot more wolf packs in the map. God, this sounds terrible. This doesn't sound like a Halloween event. It sounds like a I hate my life event. It's going to be running until November the 2nd, so only a short one, October the 28th to November the 2nd, and it's meant to go live by the time you see this video. It should be just going live right now. Supposedly it's going to be available on all platforms as well, not just PC, Xbox and PlayStation 2. Now these Halloween events are fun, they're great, and it must be time consuming getting them ready, but some developers are definitely putting a lot more effort into them than others. Ark have got new items at least and returning all their old items. And then you've got other companies, like I said, No Man's Sky, that are doing stuff. Rust is actually in the bad books today because they are reselling skins for £7, $10 or so nearly. And one of the premium streamers that plays this game brought this to my attention. I follow Oblivion, and I've got to say I don't watch his content, but I follow him on Twitter, and he spoke about how crap it is that actually Rust and Facepunch are reselling 2-year-old skins for such an expensive price. They've also increased the price of these skins over that 2 years. Apparently the Cauldron skin that you can get used to only be about £2 something, and it's gone up to like £4.50 in 2 years, and it really just is a case of them reusing, rehashing stuff and not really adding anything else to it, but still expecting you to spend quite a lot of money, which amounts to really just one simple skin. I praise Rust a lot. They've never really done lots of big paid DLC. The DLC is completely optional, like musical instruments or the summer pack. But this kind of stuff, it's still a little bit egregious when you're spending so much money on just one skin item in a game. So something to think about when Rust does eventually appear on Xbox or PlayStation. Are they going to flood it with loads of buyable skins? Probably, because they want to make loads of money, and I don't blame them. But yeah, definitely got to put a bit more effort when you do these seasonal events and really not upscale or upsell all of your items to expensive prices. Outward, a survival game that I've long told you guys I probably didn't give enough of a chance when it first launched, has improved with more updates and is pretty much a little bit of a compelling experience right now. They had a little DLC a little while ago, and it took a while to appear on Xbox and PlayStation, but it finally did, and now they've got plans for their next DLC, The Three Brothers. Now I've only got some screenshots at the moment, I couldn't find any trailer or anything just yet. but you are going to be going to a new region in the world. You're going to be able to build your own settlement, and this is pretty exciting stuff. Now, I don't think it's going to necessarily be piece by piece. It'll be more along the lines of putting like a camp and then maybe to grow that camp, a little bit like maybe Assassin's Creed Valhalla is. But still, pretty interesting stuff. There's basically going to be a new city building mechanic. You're part of rebuilding the refugee camp in the new Sirocco, which is, I guess, a new area you can be exploring. You'll be helping the people pretty much rebuild their lives after they've moved to this new area of the map. We're going to have new dungeons, quests, locations, and there's going to be new skill trees, grenades, and more ways to enchant your weapons. All in all, good solid stuff. Don't expect it to launch at any time soon, no. They kind of give details of this and then they went pretty quiet for months. So I wouldn't expect any of this content really to launch until maybe next year. But I'll be pleasantly surprised if it does come a little bit earlier. Medieval Dynasty has got its first big major update. They're going to be adding new events to the game, so you'll be able to see some of this stuff as you play the game. You'll have different scenarios that will happen, and they may turn out a little bit more random. You might have stuff like heavy rain happen, and then you've got to damage or worry about your crops. But then a few months later, people will get a significant boost because the joy of spring can be felt in the air. I like this idea. I like the idea that you're really going to have to care and manage your settlement a bit more, and it's a bit more reactionary depending on what happens. They've added some more decorative items to the game as well, so there's going to be more torches and lanterns. You'll get a little bit of warmth from these during the winter times, and they've added much more furniture. They've added brand new bags and pouches, so you'll be able to carry a lot more gear and items too. They've got customizable gameplay settings, lots of various fixes, new sounds, new animations for a lot of the stuff you've been doing already. So all in all, a nice little content update there. I would say it's still pretty small though. I guess the events are something pretty major. But yeah, maybe not as chunky as I first thought. And finishing off the survival show this week with a look at a brand new fresh game on the PlayStation 4. This is called Wild 8. It's actually a port of a PC game. It's been around a good few years. In fact, I remember speaking about this game 2 years ago, saying it was going to come to console because that's what the developer said. Now, there's a few warnings with this. I got approached by a PR company or the publisher last night, Hype Train, and they gave me a key to try it out. So you will be seeing gameplay, a full Let's Play over the weekend of this game. It's only available on PlayStation, not on Xbox at the moment. It hasn't got the co-op that is also available on Steam. It's just a single player experience. They've said that they may look into adding couch co-op, but it's not a guarantee, and they've got no plans to add online multiplayer. So Wild 8 is a survival experience where you can choose between 8 characters, and it's semi-roguelike. When you die, you lose your character's progress, but you do get to keep your items or go back and get your items in your base parts. So it's a game that really didn't receive enough support during early access. I found it quite surprising it just popped up on console out of nowhere all of a sudden, because it really hasn't been spoken about, and it came out of early access like a year ago, I swear. And so it just is one of them games that I'm worried is a bit of a cash grab, a little bit of a cash cow. I don't want to say that too much. I'm going to give it a try. If it's a good game, I'll let you guys know. But you know, I've covered some games that have been really good, and some games that maybe needed a lot more, like Memories of Mars ended up being a bit of a crap game because it just wasn't supported, and that hasn't had an update since April. Citadel Fortifier was okay, but it was still lacking a lot of stuff, and over the last year they've updated it, but more or less content that should have been there when they started. So yeah, I'm being a bit cautious with this one. I will give you my thoughts and opinions about it, and you can check out the Let's Play. But it is available now. It's like £20 or €20, and like I said, if you're looking for a new survival experience, you can go and try it, where you try and find food, fight off enemies and creatures, and obviously stay ahead of the cold. And there we go, that is it for the survival show this week. A little bit more critical. Apologies if you don't like it as much, but you know, that's what my channel's about. It's giving you opinion, not just being a mouthpiece for publishers or developers, and hopefully showing you some good stuff as well. I am diving deep into Watch Dogs Legion. You're going to see a lot of that in the next few days, so go and show the support. Really help me out, guys, and I'll see you right back to another survival show probably next week. Until then, laters.